Hi guys, I'm Vicks and welcome to today's episode of the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. Today I've got Sian Brennan-Todd with myself interviewing somebody who I think you might know who this person is. I think you guys might have a clue.
Yeah. We're at the Shropshire Business Suite as well. It's a really nice place. We've got a dedicated podcast studio, but this episode isn't about me, really. It's about you. So you take it away.
It is about you. It's you. It's you that we're interviewing.
You interview me?
Yes.
On my own podcast?
That's absolutely right.
Are you guys insane?
I think it's about time, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I do like talking about myself. You know, I'm a bit of a narcissist. It's that if you know me, that's absolutely ironic. But no, yeah. You guys are interviewing me. Thank you to Stuart Woodings for letting us use Shropshire Business Suite podcast studio. Make sure you check it out. It's a really great place to be.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So what are you going to ask me?
So many things.
Are you going to put me on the spot? Are you going to
Yes.
Who do you work for?
Who's the guy behind the voice?
And we're playing a new game as well on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is because we need your help for this game, Round the Wrekin, and we've got our first suggestion for things at Round the Wrekin, and I'm really excited to play this game. So yeah,
love games.
More excited about the game than being interviewed on my own podcast.
Oh come on! You'll love it. It's going to be great fun. I can't wait. We're going to learn so much about you.
So do you want to introduce today's guest then?
Yes. So, folks, today's guest is the one, the only, the voice of Shrewsbury. It is Alex Whiteley.
You mean Whiteley?
Yes, sorry.
Just take it away.
Do you like that?
Every time I think of that, I think of what was said and done. I don't think there's much change. I think I'm still the same. I'm sure some people disagree, but I don't care 'cause I am me. Stick to what you can. Stick to what you plan.
Welcome, everybody, to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. We have a very unusual episode today. It's really exciting. I can't wait. And joining me today on the panel is
Sian Brennan-Todd. Hello.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Sian is a wonderful presenter, a confidence coach, and a cheerleader dancer extraordinaire.
I like that title. Thank you.
I was going to do like a little cheerleading thing and say, give me an S, give me an I, give me an N, give me an N. But I thought it might not come across as a podcast. People just listening can't see me waving my arms about. So
it was very good waving, I have to say. I enjoyed it. So I got the visual. Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to have you today. And we have a very familiar voice in the middle here, and you might recognise it. And we are going to be interviewing you today, which is really, you're on the other side of this today.
Yeah.
Here he is.
This is really weird because I've done like 1,000 podcasts to date, and like as a host, I'm usually really good, but as a guest, I'm a bit weird, and I'm being on my own show as well. So this is going to be quite interesting.
Can you just introduce yourself? Sorry to interrupt you there, Sian.
Alexander Sean Christopher Whiteley. Thank you.
Thank you. For those who don't know me.
That's me.
Sorry, Sian, go on. I interrupted you there.
No, not at all. I was going to say how lovely it is because I know lots of people who listen to the podcast and love all the guests, but actually, you know, there is somebody behind this who's making all this magic happen that has a really interesting story to tell. So I am excited to be here to kind of co-host and ask those questions that we know the community want to know about you and about the podcast.
It's buried in the park underneath the big oak tree. It's my treasure. You can't have it.
And I know that the pressing question of the public is all the viewers and listeners of the podcast, followers on Facebook, Instagram, on our website. I think it's going to be, what hat is Alex wearing today?
Yeah, I do have quite an array of hats, I've got to say. And it's not even to do with being follically challenged. Even when I had hair, I used to wear hats all the time. I just really enjoy hats. But yeah, I've got a grey Yankees hat. It's like a fluffy effect.
You don them so well though, because I have a problem with hats. I can't find one hat that suits me. It doesn't fit my head. I don't know what is wrong with my head or the shape of it. But you're a pro with hats, and
this is going to be the guest. The whole purpose of you being on the show now is to find a hat that fits Vicks. Like, that's what we're going to do. Send in your hats, people. That
Please.
We can do pictures.
I'll show you all the photos of the really bad hats as well, if you like. It's just I've got a whole load of them on my phone here.
Well, to share some of those pictures. You know what? One of the riders that I put for when we did Pod Aid with Reach, and they were like, "What do you need for Pod Aid?" I was like, "Can you get me a hat?"
That's it. Just the hat.
And yeah, but it's up on my wall. I've still got it. It's great.
Oh, I've got a really small head. So whenever I was a dancer, whenever we were fitted for costumes, they would always re-measure my head because they were like, that can't be the size. That's a child's head. So they would always have to get hats and make them really, really small for me. So there we go. You know, I've got a head that only fits child hats.
Oh, thank you. I feel like, yeah, we can be in this together then.
What hats do you enjoy?
Oh, what a start.
So we've got a really fantastic episode for you today. It's going to be we're going to delve into deep Alex. What is the mind and the wonderful persona behind the microphone?
Yeah, what's lurking behind the shadows?
Well, I want to ask, as somebody new to Shrewsbury, I have really enjoyed finding your podcast because it highlights such a variety of people. But you've obviously started this back in around 2017, am I right? Yeah?
Yeah, right then.
Yeah.
Tail end of that, yeah.
That's what I thought. What made you start the podcast? Can we get a little bit of history for somebody who's new to the area? What sort of was happening in Shrewsbury in 2017 that made you think, right, I'm going to start a podcast about this amazing place? You know, there's so much going on. We know that. But why the podcast?
Well, it sounds really negative the way I put it, but it's actually quite nice because I grew up in Telford and Wrexham and places where, for me personally, it was kind of like I was never sort of proud to live there. I wasn't like, I mean, in Wrexham, I was the English kid, you know what I mean? So I was a bit, and if you're from Wrexham, you know. But like, we moved to Shrewsbury because my wife had family here. It's just a nice place to live. And I was so happy that when we finally got here, and I was walking across Greyfriars Bridge, and I just saw students just stop and take pictures. And I was like, I've never seen like young people enjoy life. And I just felt so in love with the place. But actually, I had a bit of imposter syndrome because I thought this is quite a sophisticated town with a lot of history and culture. Like, I don't know nothing about this town. I can't possibly make a podcast about that. So I and ahed about it. And then eventually I kind of got the courage to be able to be like, actually, if I learn about the town on the podcast and all the listeners do, then that's a good premise. And even when I first started, I didn't think it was going to do well. But so what I did was I went around town and I managed to collect 6 guests, 6 shows that I can put together and start a run, and that's what I did. That's where it came from, and to my surprise, people actually really enjoyed the show from the start. It was really good.
And that's kind of ahead of the curve because, you know, podcasts now are everywhere. Brilliant. A great way to be entertained. You know, if you're out walking the dog or if you're at home, you know, doing another job, you can have that podcast on. But back then that was pretty ahead of the curve. Did you find any challenges? Because nowadays podcasts are I feel it's quite easy to get guests because people understand the value of them and enjoy talking about their subject matter. But back then, did you find any challenges with sort of saying to people, right, can you come and sit and talk to me about Shrewsbury?
Not so much about people coming on the show and talking, because I think deep down we're all narcissists in our own way. But like, I mean, if you're passionate about something, you're going to talk about it. But so I never found it. And in fact, from the get-go, I had people messaging me to come on the show, which is really helpful because it's really hard to approach someone with a business card and be like, you want to, and as soon as they see a business card or something like that, they go, no, like you got to explain, actually, no, I'm not doing anything for pay or anything. I just want to hear your story. The biggest problem was imposter syndrome. That's down to my own, that's things I'm working on at the moment, but that's to my own confidence. But the podcast has kind of helped with that over time. Also was the eye roll when you mention a podcast. I've got a podcast, and you get like that. You can almost hear like it's like a creaky gate that hasn't been oiled for years. You can hear those eye rolls like, oh, you've got a podcast, have you? And yeah, that was one of the biggest issues. It's like, your friends and your family will not share your posts. They won't. And it's like, that does not mean they don't love you or anything like that. It just means that they don't care, in all honesty. And that was a hard thing to deal with. I'm like, oh, why don't you share my stuff? Do you know what I mean? And so you had to grow organically. And then I think any podcaster that's been around for as long as I have or even longer will know that the industry has changed a lot over the years. In the way that how podcasts are made, how the content is shared, and how the community is together. It used to be very narcissistic, very needy. You go on a page and you drop a podcast link and you tell people about your podcast, and then other podcasters will drop a link to their podcast on your comments, and you'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, it was for a while there. It was very much me, and that was quite hard. So yeah, it's been the evolution of the podcast itself has been quite difficult, but I'm still here, aren't I?
Yeah. And still going strong, not just here, still going strong. And you've had such a plethora of guests over the years.
Yeah.
Who would you say stands out? Maybe not so much for, good, bad reasons, whatever you want. Who, as a guest, do you look back at still now and think, that was brilliant, I really enjoyed that?
Right, as I reach into my notebook, 'cause I knew I was going to get asked this. Right, so I wrote down a few guests that stand out. Where is the page? Is this it? Yeah. I labelled it narcissistic ramblings. Okay, so for Biscuit or in general, like all together, because I've done loads of different. For the Biscuit,
Biscuit.
When I think of like people that really stand out, Amanda Jones from Shropshire supports refugees. I remember we had a studio in the parade, and she came in and we started talking about a refugee situation and how the world sort of reacts to that kind of thing. And she absolutely blew me away to the point I was like, after she left, I was like, whoa. For a while, she had a really standing sort of impact on me. I thought it was really, really good. Dean Harris, who was the High Sheriff at the time. Anybody that has anything to do with business in Shropshire will know who Dean Harris is. She's amazing. And I just thought she was an amazing woman in business who had so much like confidence, and the way she held herself, I thought that was really, really influential. Charlie Adlard, we've had this weird like relationship over the years, me and Charlie Adlard. He's one of the most famous people in Shrewsbury at the moment, but he doesn't hold himself that way. And it's weird because when he first came around my house to do, it was Thorskin actually before the Biscuit, I was like, oh my God, Charlie Adlard is coming around my house. Oh my God. Now I'm safe to say we're friends. And that's weird. That's weird to say that I'm friends with Charlie Adlard,
Can you tell the listeners who Charlie Adlard is? Because not everybody knows these things.
Oh yeah, I take that for granted. Charlie Adlard is the co-creator of the Walking Dead comic book or graphic novel.
Fantastic.
Which obviously went on to become one of the biggest independent comic books. TV show is still running to this day. So he's not just worth a lot of money, but like as an artist, I think he offers a lot of inspiration, and he's done a lot for the Hive as well. So. He's just, whenever there's arty things going on in Shrewsbury, he's there. And it doesn't matter on what sort of precipice you put him on. He's just down to earth, and he's ready to share his gifts and stuff and his knowledge. And that's why I appreciate Charlie, I think.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've sort of like, put us all in the picture there, because I had this conversation with my daughter last night, and she just made me realise how I don't understand who these famous people are, and that I should know, and I'm not cool at all. So now I can say, oh, you know who Charlie Adlard is? Well, I do.
One up. Yeah.
He's been on the podcast a few times. It's nice. But like, I used to have this like, if Charlie's listening to this, he'd probably roll his eyes. But like, there's a few times where like, I don't know what it is. I turn into like a giggly little schoolgirl around him. Like, and I don't know what he's man crush or like, I don't know what it is. But like, I remember there's a funny story I always share where I was at, what was it? It was, I think it was the opener for Comic Salopia. Yes, it was. At the university, and I was there getting interviews, and when Charlie Adlard was doing his thank you speech to everybody got involved, he mentioned me in the Shrewsbury Biscuit. I was like, he knows my name, you know what I mean? And then afterwards we all having drinks and people were chatting, networking and whatever, and I saw Charlie outside chatting to the mayor, and I went over to say thank you for mentioning me. And I went to shake his hand, and as I went to reach in, the mayor went to reach in, and we had this free hand sort of like crash where I tried to interrupt, almost accidentally interrupt this handshake between the mayor and Charlie Adlard. And Charlie looked at me, kind of gave me a quick little shake, And then did a proper handshake with the mayor. I was kind of like, oh.
Sorry.
Do you know how awkward that was? But yeah, that was funny.
And can I ask, over the years that you've been doing the podcast, how much has Shrewsbury changed? Because as someone relatively new here, obviously, you know, I've only been here a couple of years. How much has the town of Shrewsbury changed since you've been doing the podcast? What have been the main things you've noticed?
I think it has. And, you know, from a content creator point of view, I think, you know, we've gone from... There were podcasts running, but it was very quite obscure. I think I googled Shrewsbury and podcast and found church sermons. You know, it was kind of you know. So when it comes to content creation, it is exploded. There are so many like really like amazing podcasts, like genuinely in the Stiffs, which is it's a show about Shrewsbury Town and football. It's Gav Cowan, Sam Easton and Dave Edwards, both ex-Shrewsbury Town players, and it's massive. Like they sell out tickets to live shows and stuff, and they do good. That didn't exist back then. There's Walking the Straight Line with Kate Taylor. She's amazing. She talks about sobriety and, you know, that thing. There's so many great content creators in Shrewsbury now, and it's really nice to see. And the thing about me is like, I think that we can all collaborate and work together and sort of share the space, because I think there's 16 billion ears on the planet. Like there's enough people out there to listen to your content.
I totally agree. What was it that attracted you to podcasting in particular? What is it, the love of podcasting that, you know, you say you were walking across and you saw the people take the photo. What made you think podcasting is the way forward?
This is going to make me sound like, and world peace, but like...
That's good. We like world peace. World peace is good. Yeah.
I like to help people. I like to offer an olive branch or a hand to people. And I remember when I started an office job on nights by myself, and it was just so hard to like sit there. Imagine sitting there for a whole night, like 12 hours, deafening silence. You know, it was really hard, and my mental health was like quite jarred for a week. I was kind of like, oh my God, I can't keep this up. And my friend was like, we'd had a few whiskeys, and he was like, oh, we were chatting about Kevin Smith, and he was like, you know, Kev Smith's got podcasts. And I was like, what's your podcast, you know? And he introduced me to Hollywood Babylon and Edumacation, 2 podcasts that he was doing, amongst others. He did Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, Smodcast. He did so many different podcasts. If you don't know who Kevin Smith is, he directed the movies Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob, and Clerks as well. He's quite famous for making independent small movies, but podcasting as well. So I started listening to these during my shifts, and they sort of relaxed me, almost like when you leave the radio on for the dog, you know. That's kind of like, yeah, but like not just that, I felt part of a community. I could go on the Facebook groups and pages and talk with these people about what's going on in the podcast and the world around them. I went to live shows. It just really opened up my eyes, and I thought I'd love to do this. And I thought that to have your own podcast, you needed lots of money and you needed this backing and stuff like that. But I met, I found a podcast called Two Broke Geeks, and they're really good guys. I'm still friends with them today, and I listen to their podcast. They do it on a shoestring budget, and I was kind of like, I want to do this. I want to offer to people what I got back from these podcasts. I want to give people a community to be a part of. So I created Thor's Kin podcast back in the end of 2017, and we started doing it. It was me with James Rose, and we talk about movies and games and stuff, and we'd have a couple of beers, and it was a bit R-rated. You could swear and stuff, and like people started like gravitating towards us, and I was like, oh my God, people actually want to listen to my stuff. Like, and it was just a case of like people were messaging us and going, you've made my day better. Like, thank you for that episode. It was really funny. And, you know, I had people like ringing us up. Ryan Williams, big shout out to Ryan Williams in the US. Like, he was a big fan of ours. He'd go and have a smoke in his car, and he'd listen to the podcast, but he'd like send me voice notes like, man, that episode was amazing. You did this. And that for me was just, even though it's small, even though we were only getting like a couple hundred listeners, they were really important to us. So that's what drew me into it. And I was really grateful to get something back from the community.
It's amazing. And I think there's something really personal about being in somebody's ears, basically. It's like, when I've been listening to you, it's like feel like you're talking to me. It's like, he's talking to me. You know, I'm just walking my dog and I'm listening, and it's like, and I'm in the room with these people. I'm like, I could be having a cup of tea and a biscuit, and having a chat, you know, and I feel like I'm with you. And when I've listened to you, it's like, I learn so much, you know, and the guests that you have on, and I come away and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that before. I didn't know about this, but about this person or this part of Shrewsbury or this business or, this ethos or this way of thinking. I was like, oh, this is opening my mind. And it was just brilliant because it felt so personal, just listening to you in my ears. It was like, he's talking to me.
And I think the community element is vital. It's funny that you touched on that because, having a conversation with somebody afterwards about the podcast, if it's, on a Facebook group or however you have that community element, but it is feeling part of something. And I think you're right. If you're doing a night shift somewhere or, you're driving and you're on your own, you do feel like you're part of something. And I know the podcast that I've listened to, obviously this being one of them, but you do learn and you're sort of thinking, wow, I haven't wasted that 8-hour shift of, just doing something mundane. I've actually learned something and I can, talk to somebody else about that. And so I think that part of community that you're talking about is actually really, really crucial.
Especially if it's relatable as well. Like Chris and Rosie Ramsey, Chris Ramsey being a famous comedian, they've got a podcast called Shagged, Married and Annoyed, and it's all about their relationship. And they talk about things that people with families can relate to. Like he's all talking about, I love doing the dishes because you get free goodies at the end. He's talking about the stuff that gathers around the drain. You're like, he's talking about things that are relatable. And that's why it's very important to me. Is one of my main ethos is to keep the podcast organic, keep the flaws in, keep the weird ramblings and the mistakes and things like that, because people relate to that. I don't want to sound like, hi, I'm Alex Whiteley and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit, because I think like we're living in this Instagram era at the moment where everything's shiny and flash and amazing, and life isn't like that,
Absolutely. I can definitely, we're all nodding. I think we can all say life is not, it's definitely not shiny. Quick question. Why the name? You just touched on the older biscuit. Why the name? I love it.
Well, we got obviously there's the Shrewsbury Biscuit, which is a famous biscuit from here. But the reason why, and it's really like deep and convoluted, I went to a Ross Noble gig. Do you know who Ross Noble is?
Yeah.
Australian, well, he's not Australian, he's Geordie, but now he lives in Australia. He's massive out there. I went to see one of his gigs in Oakengates. Now, obviously, Shrewsbury and Telford are rival towns. And he was on stage, he was like, I'm going to start throwing Shrewsbury biscuits at you. And everybody looked gormless. He's like, you don't know your rival town has a biscuit named after it. And I was like, light bulb, ding. And that was like, oh my God, I can teach people about their town that they might not know about. I was like, that's literally where it comes from. I was driving on the Telford interchange by the train station as you go onto the EP, right? I thought I was there. That's where I was. And I was like, oh my God, light bulb, I'll put it all together. And that is literally the birthplace of the Shrewsbury Biscuit, is the Telford interchange.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's like, it's a metaphor, isn't it? You're learning about your town, things that you might not know.
Yeah. So you obviously do this as a passion. We can tell that from your voice and you obviously the way that you set it up, but you've obviously been doing full-time work, family life, normal life, just everything, as well as this. How easy has that been to fit this in? Because I know when it's a passion project, we find time for things that we want to. But, the reality is day-to-day living, things get in the way, work gets in the way. For somebody who maybe is listening to this thinking, I'd love to do whatever it is, maybe not a podcast, something else, but I've got a full-time job and I've got to do this and I'm thinking about the time. How easy has it been to fit this around your life?
Not very. I think one podcast doing this is fine.
Yeah.
And I've worked out how to sort of balance it in. So on the school run, I'll go an hour early and sit in house coffee to do a bit of editing. Or if he's at a club somewhere, my wife will take him and I'll be like, I'm going to hang back and I'm going to do a bit of it. As long as you've got the time and the commitment to sit and do the ugly work, the editing and make the artwork and all those kind of things. This part here, the interviews, this is the fun bit, Yeah. I love that. You've got to be able to get your hands dirty and actually make things. I learned from falling off the track, if I'm honest, because I took on too much. I was doing so You Suck US UK, if anybody's listening to this first time, was it came on the tail end of Thor's Kin podcast. It was a US UK collaboration. So we had teams in California, Tom Bruno in Vermont. We had people run through the UK. And it was just like, there was 5 podcasts that run off that one network, and everything was running. And I had a radio show called Naughty Talk on Splash Damage Radio. That was a weekly thing, but that took like 3 or 4 hours to plan and to put all the music into the segments and to create the segments. And then I had the Shrewsbury Biscuit as well. So that's finding guests, recording, editing, and also my full-time job. So I was just like flat out all the time, never had breaks for it. And don't get me wrong, I love it, but it was way too much. And I struggled with relationships with USUC because I was tired. I struggled with the radio because I wasn't quite doing the stuff because I was busy doing this. My relationship was fine, but I wasn't spending enough time with my family, and I wasn't like recharging my batteries. That was way too much. So I've learned my own sort of life balance. Do you know what I mean? So I cut everything out but the biscuit so that I can do it, because this means a lot to me. It really does.
I think it's so important to have that balance, isn't it? And I think as humans, we're all the same, aren't we? We've all got these plates that we're juggling. We're all spinning them around, and it's really difficult to get that life balance, isn't it? And
it's taught me how to like multitask and how to like work in a demanding arena. Do you know what I mean? Because we had live shows to do. You like once when it's a live show and there's a camera on you, you've got to be on form. You can't mess up. And I did a few times, you know what I mean? But it teaches you. And I mean, I don't make notes anymore. I can talk like freely without struggling. I mean, if you have a conversation with me in the street, I'll be like, what? Do you know what I mean? Like, but with this, I can now sort of move fluidly and stuff. That's because I did so much. I made so much content. So even if the content wasn't like massive and went somewhere, it's taught me how to interview high-profile guests. It's taught me how to learn about things that I wouldn't normally talk about. We're talking about nails. We're going to do like a nail salon. I've spoken to Manola Moss about eyelash extensions. I've interviewed on top of the Shrewsbury Abbey. I can't stand heights. The pillar in Hawkston Park. On top of there, we've done some amazing things, and that's added to the experience, which makes it easier for me now. It's like weight training, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And also, creating so much content at the beginning. I know Ed Sheeran always talks about, everyone says, you're naturally born talented. And he said, no. When I started, what I was playing was dreadful. And he has that famous, interview with Jonathan Ross, and he plays the first time he ever, busked, and everybody was like, yeah, that's not great. But he said, I had to do all that terrible stuff to get good. I couldn't get good without going through all of that. And I guess that's like what you're saying is at the start is you've got to just throw yourself into it. You've got to make those mistakes, because that is the only way as a creative you're going to then be able to move forward and do the good stuff.
Dave Grohl is one of my favorite inspirations, because he says, as a band, you've got to suck before you get good. Like, go in a garage, thrash it out, be terrible, and learn how this is true, right? And this is what I would say to anybody that wants to start a podcast or start any sort of speaking, audio, radio, whatever it is you want to do. Practice first. And when you're starting, you're now part of a community, right? So whether you're 1 or 2 episodes in or 100, you're now part of a community. Reach out to other podcasts, become a guest on other podcasts, and say you want to, because then you'll learn. Also, don't do too much research, right? Because then if you go in and you think you know everything about the guest and you go with reams and reams of notes, you're either going to ignore your notes because you're too concentrated on the guest, or you're going to become across as arrogant. You need to learn about the guests so the listeners do. I mean, obviously, like, learn what they like and what they do and stuff. Then you can relate to them and have that conversation, but don't do too much.
Good advice there. That's brilliant. I am taking notes there.
But anybody can do this. You just can't expect to be. Some people can just literally record any old crap on a phone and be amazing. Like, I've learned that. Like, I've built studio equipment together over the years. And then I hear about some people like recording stuff on an iPhone and getting like thousands and thousands of. I'm like, what? Like, yes, that happens. You got to learn that sometimes you just got to stay in your own lane and just do what you got to do. Stick to your guns,
And on that, I was at an event the other week and I was presenting, and we had, the videographer there. They'd spent a lot of money on the photos and the videos, and then they suddenly said, right, quickly, we need some footage. Quickly, go and grab some footage in the warm-up room. And I went in with my iPhone, and I was like, oh, okay, so the videographer was editing. So I went in, filmed something. It was 7 seconds long. We put some, audio on it, and we quickly put up because we had to get something out. And we looked back, and about 5 hours later, there was like 60,000 views on it, and everyone liked it. And it was, the videographer was going, what? I'm being paid all this money to do this, and you've done that on your phone. But sometimes that messy, it was kind of messiness and behind the scenes. It was in the warm-up room. It wasn't the polished. And actually that was what people wanted to see. They went, oh, wow, that's what's happening in there. And I think it's like what you're saying that, sometimes with the podcasts, people don't want to hear a perfect, polished, edited version. They want to hear, the coffee nearly slipping over and whatever else it might be, because that's life.
And Two Broke Geeks, I mean, they're amazing guys. Big shout out to them. They would just geek out about movies and stuff and it was no like quality audio. Like Hollywood Babylon with Kevin Smith and Ralph Garman was like at the Hollywood Improv live, and that was that was amazing. You had Ralph Garman, literally one of the best voice actors on the planet. So he is famous for. So you got Family Guy, you got Seth MacFarlane and all the other guys that do the main character. He does all the other voices. So he's on every single episode of Family Guy, from K-Rock. He's massive, right? The Joe Schmo show, he's from that. They put a lot of high quality, but I hold smaller podcasts like Two Broke Geeks to the same esteem as that, because I related to him. And this is what I say about podcasts, is that you can do a podcast about knitting. You can do it about snakes. You can do it about different types of wood. I got a T-shirt with Pints Unknown. It's a podcast I went on, and we sat and drank beers, and we compared the beers. He got British beers, and I got American beers, and we sort of compared them. It was amazing, and he sent me out a T-shirt. There's literally a podcast for everybody.
What a great podcast!
It was great.
People are going to be lining up to go on that one.
Pints Unknown. Make sure you find them. And he sent me out a T-shirt as well. And there's so much. I mean, what I will say is, when I was first started doing it, it started becoming a new, fresh idea where online sources can create this software that people can use, and they were trying to entice people in by welcoming, Headliner, for example, is a great tool for anybody to use to make Instagram reels. You can use that for free. You can upload your audio. You throw on a graphic or a video or something, and there you go. It's a bit like Canva, and in fact, it marries up with Canva. You can use them both together. But at the beginning, they'd send me out stickers and all sorts, because I used to champion them. They'd be like, "Oh, nice one, Alex. We're in New York, but we're going to send you loads of stuff." And that was amazing. Whereas now it's kind of like a corporate machine. There's lots of people vying for that business. So there isn't that kind of friendliness anymore. It's kind of like, it's $20 a month.
It's much more business oriented
it's more
now, isn't it?
It's not there's not like a handshake between people. It's no, it's 20, But that being said, Captivate, where I host my podcast, which I introduced you to,
did indeed,
is a British-run podcast host. If you don't know what a podcast host is, it's what you upload your podcast to, and then it sends it out to Spotify and iTunes and stuff for you. So that's why I upload my podcast to every week. And now they're a British company, and they're very you can message them, you can email them, and they get back to you. It's quite cool.
I think it's fantastic. And the thing that's lovely about you is that you share all this with people freely. And you did with myself. And without that, I wouldn't have had my podcast been able to be uploaded, my audio drama. And I was just so grateful to you for that, because some people are quite cagey about their knowledge or what they've learned or known, because it's I've worked hard to get to here. That's a webinar.
Make some money off this.
It's I can't share that, because that's top secret information. But you were just oh yeah, this is what I'm using, and you can use it, and it's great. And
I'm always a champion of free software. For my video software, I don't use Adobe, I use Caden Live. And of course, I've mentioned Headliner. And Instagram is just great, and TikTok, you can edit your videos on the go, and then you can download it and reuse them. They're really good ways of making free content. It's
brilliant. But there is room for all of us on this, like you were saying before, on the planet. There's room for everybody to help each other up and to all rise together. And we're not in competition with each other. Everyone's doing their own thing. And I think that's the thing that's beautiful, what you were saying before. And I was just to ask, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to follow their dreams? Because this was obviously a dream of yours. You love listening to podcasts. And you were who'd have thought you'd be here now in this day, and that you're running a successful the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. And, I just think that when you first start out on something and you have this dream, people can be passionate about anything. Like we were saying earlier, it might be that they've got this urge to think, I've got this job and I've got the family and I'm trying to juggle it all. Very important what we were saying earlier about balance and everything. But about passion and dreams, what would you say to people to follow that? Because this is a real passion and it's been a dream of yours.
I ask this question a lot on the podcast, and one of the most generic answers is just do it. You got to put yourself out there, which is fine. I think
you should get paid for that comment as well. Nike, anyone listening from Nike?
With Shia LaBeouf. just do it. Yeah, that was amazing. I would say don't be afraid of the first hurdles. I mean, like, failure is a part of the process. We mentioned this already. I feel like the worst thing about whether it's content or whether it's reaching out to people is no response. It's not the hate or the terrible messages or the likes and stuff. It's the nothing. That is the worst thing. So you've got to stand out and be prepared to take on. If you're taking on negativity, it's still like feedback. So you've got to be able to stand out and be prepared to bring in a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative, right? So if you're getting nothing back, adapt, change, make sure you're interacting with people and they're interacting with you.
Because you can have these knockbacks, can't you? It can really affect your confidence. Say it's like, I want to be an Olympic runner or something, but then you're not getting the support, like you were saying, you're not getting the feedback, or you're not getting the family or the friends to share or say, I'm supporting you on your journey. It can be a lonely journey, can't it?
Yeah.
But like, you're a confidence coach, Sean. And this is so important, isn't it? To still keep that confidence going, isn't it? And to believe in yourself and follow your dreams.
Absolutely. And confidence, I know we talked off air earlier about confidence is not being the loudest person in the room. Confidence is being so self-assured, and that brings out people's confidence. And I think you have to be able to feel that self-confidence without anyone else's validation. Because if you're waiting for your Auntie Joan to say how great your post was, like Alex said, or if you're waiting for anything from somebody else, then it's probably not going to happen. And then you don't have that confidence. You have to feel it within yourself. And that is definitely comes across, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're doing TV, radio, you're giving a speech at work, you need to have that self-confidence. And then when someone else says, I love that podcast, or that was a great chat, or something else, you're like, okay, good, that does, help. And I think feedback is really important. And, I came from a dance background where no one's afraid to say anything to you. Back in the 90s, they could say anything they liked, but it did really help. And, not all feedback's going to be positive. And sometimes hearing that negative feedback, as hard as it can be at that particular moment, you will grow from that, and you will think, okay, I can take that on board and make those changes, or no, I don't actually agree with that, I'm going to move away. But I think you have to have that self-confidence first before you're waiting for other validation, because like you said, sometimes it can be negative, and if you're already feeling low yourself, that is added on.
I remember during, I think it's the tail end of COVID, there's the Black Lives Matter stuff that was going on in the quarry, and I shared a video because do you know what? I should have got an interview, but the young girl that was speaking was so passionate, and I was just like, this is amazing. I love this so much. Whatever you feel about Black Lives Matter or any sort of social justice thing that's going on, if you can stand in front of people and give a passionate speech about caring and compassion, and I thought it was really powerful. So I recorded it and I put it on For the Love of Shrewsbury. I put it on You're from Shrewsbury Where, and I put it on everywhere. All those. And the hate I got, like, it was just like, oh yeah, you're a virtual signaler and all this sort of stuff. I was like, what? Like, it was just the natural thing for me. That for me though, it showed that it did what it was supposed to do. It riled up the right people. Do you know what I mean? So it did its job, and I shared what I wanted to share because I thought it was amazing, so I don't care.
Yeah, and everybody, I've been talking to my children again about this. I'm not going to keep saying about my kids, but you'll find your tribe, you know what I mean? And your tribe will come to you. And it's the same with your followers. You'll generate the followers. You'll find your tribe, and your tribe will gravitate to you because you're such an authentic soul. And that's what I love about you. Anyway, I've got another question for you. If you could interview anybody, and you had the opportunity and the chance to interview absolutely anybody in the world, who would it be and why?
Alive or dead?
Perhaps do both. Go on.
We touched about this on our first episode together.
Didn't we?
And I gave my top 4, but I think the one I always wanted was Kevin Smith. But the thing was, Kevin Smith, you need a 4-hour-long podcast. It's hard to get a word in edgeways, but like, I think I've been thinking about questions to ask him that other people don't sort of ask. You know what I mean? So like, how did you get started in film, and how did you get started in podcasts, and what's all these generic questions. I'd want to know what kind of like what's your favorite cafe, or you know what do you watch in the evenings, or you know these kind of like personal questions where it feels like we're friends and stuff. You know what I mean? I've interviewed people. I've interviewed Ralph Garman, who I mentioned from Hollywood Babylon. I've interviewed a few friends. Eddie Pence, who Ralph does a show with. We're friends, which is mad to say. All right, Eddie, if you're listening to my show, I've interviewed people around him, and I've spoken to people that I work with him, but I haven't been able to like get him on a podcast. And now that I'm not doing anything outside of Shrewsbury, it's really hard to sort of reach out, because even if now I started a podcast, I'd be like, yeah, you know, I just started a podcast, I've got like 10 viewers and stuff, like, do you want to come on my podcast? Kev Smith is one of my people, because like he made like Clerks with like, I don't know, was it 15 grand or something like that, and it went on to make millions. Do you know what I mean? So
wow,
that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah. So, Kev, what about yourself? Have your guests sort of changed, or has anybody fresh popped into your mind?
Oh, yeah, well, like there's so many. Yeah, so many. But like you say, I'm sort of like, I'm still working on my homework. I'm still doing it, and I'm getting all these lists of names of people. But like as I do, I'm like thinking, oh, there's more. But I've got like some exciting ones coming up that people who have said they're not available till the summer, but they're a little bit famous. But I'm not going to say. I'm keeping it shum at the moment.
I did say Greg Davis as well, because I think it's really important to get someone that's local, and just like, he is a British A-lister, but he's just so famous. Like,
Oh, I like that.
I can't come on your podcast, Alex, because I'm so famous. I can imagine, because he always comes across as this real tough exterior, like, you know, on Taskmaster and stuff, but I imagine he's a bit of a diva. Do you know what I mean? Like, what about you? Have you ever thought about this?
Yeah, I mean, I interview people quite a lot, I guess, with work, mainly, you know, not on podcasts, mainly for socials. But yeah, I love interviewing people who I don't think they're going to be like they are. And one thing I found with interviews, I did a lot of bands over the summer, and it is exactly what you said. It's asking the questions that no one else asks. And I had done a little bit of research on things they liked outside of music. And so suddenly I was able to kind of get in with them. You know, one was Top Loader. I was interviewing Top Loader, and I found out the lead singer really liked gardening. So we ended up having a chat about gardening, and he lives where I used to live in London. So straight away we had a different angle in, and rather than when they said, yeah, it's 5 minutes, it ended up being sort of 15 minutes, because when you're talking to someone about something they want to talk about and that they are passionate about, they will keep talking to you. Yeah. It's if you're asking them, you know, if they're doing sort of, you know, 10 interviews in the day and everyone's sort of asking the same things, that becomes boring to them. So you have to find ways to make it interesting for the person that you're interviewing, not just what maybe, you know, the TV company have said you've got to do. But I want to ask, as someone still relatively new to the area, what do you love most about Shrewsbury now? Like if you could spend an afternoon, you know, whether it was going for somewhere to eat or going for a walk or going to, you know, a museum or whatever, what would you say to somebody listening? What perhaps is maybe a hidden gem, or what's something that you, after all these years in Shrewsbury, where would you recommend somebody to go, or what would you do?
Oh, okay, right. So, I mean, one of the things I love about Shrewsbury, people eye roll now, is the coffee shop culture. I think people is something that people take for granted in this town. I think we're like, oh, another coffee shop, but we were just sat in Daily Brews on Town Square, really nice place. I think there's always somewhere to go and sit and chill. One of my favourite places in Shrewsbury is the church on King Street, the Unitarian Church, and the red door. And this is going to sound really daft. I'm not a religious person, but I remember I was doing something for the Darwin Festival, and it was like a bright day. I think it was like January or something, but it was just a really bright day. It was hustle and bustle, and I was going to see Fiona, who was there at the time, and I nipped in, and it went from this hustle and bustle, bright day, to like quiet.
Wow.
And just really relaxed. Whether you're religious or not, and it's open, pop your head in there one day, because you'll see it's like its own. It's like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. It's like its own little universe. Like, and you can just go and sit there and sort of contemplate things. It's nice.
That's like I just feel like there's like that serenity. It just sounds like,
it's amazing. Yeah,
really good for the soul.
I recorded a historical voice tour, like a guided tour, that you can still download, by the way. I think it's Voices of Shrewsbury, I think it's called, and it's of the Unitarian Church, and it starts you at the door, and you walk through, and you can go around and you can learn about the the organ, and you can learn about this, that, and the other. It's amazing, really, really cool. And that's the thing I love from my own personal thing, is I get to go places where people can't, and that's really special. The history, the culture, I think be a tourist in your own town. If you haven't been to the museum in the last 12 months, go, because museums change. There's new things that go in there, Be a tourist in your own town. Go to the castle. They've got so many amazing things in the castle. The Shropshire regimental history. It's just so amazing. They've got like items that were owned by Hitler. They've got a flag, an American flag that was part of the original White House that was burned during the Civil War. Like, it's amazing. Like, it's honestly, there's some amazing artifacts in there.
What about for you? What would you say to somebody is a good way to spend an afternoon in Shrewsbury?
Well, I think a lovely stroll round the Dingle.
Yeah.
That's another place that I go, and you just can sit with a book, and you've got the sound of the water. You've got the Sabrina sculpture, and it's just like, it's just lovely. And the flowers, and obviously you've got Percy Thrower. I mean, we're so lucky in Shrewsbury, aren't we? It's amazing. And then a nice walk around the quarry. I like to take my dog and have a little bite to eat. We've got fantastic eateries. We're just so lucky.
And the quarry's amazing. I think it really is. Just, whether you go in cycling, walking, I know every town's got their own little version of the quarry, their own little park. And we've Hossus Tree in Telford, they've got a massive park there. But like you said, it's just
and looking at the river, because I was a big fan of Wind in the Willows as a child, and looking at the boathouse and the river, I just sort of think I can see little badger there and mole, and the mole, and then I see the rowers going by, the Shrewsbury, Shrewsbury School rowers, all different people in the rowing club, and I'm like, wow, it's awesome, isn't it?
By the way, I just need to touch on the fact that there was an item owned by Hitler near a museum. That's not like me going, it's owned by Hitler, but I just thought it was a really random thing that was just in this museum. Like, I'm not saying go and pay homage to freaking Hitler. That's not what I was trying to say. I thought I'd just touch on that, because like Kanye West is doing his thing at the moment, and I was like, I don't want to be a part of that.
And going back to the quarry, when we first landed here, you were having a heat wave in the UK, and I remember walking down. We were obviously jet lagged, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and we were all wide awake. So I said, right, let's go for a walk, and it was still really bright, one of those gorgeous summer English nights. I know we can dream about them right now. And we walked down to the quarry, and there was people doing yoga. Now, I don't know if it was a one-off, but they weren't really together. There was like a few people sort of dotted around, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my gosh, England has changed. We were away for 6 years, and I was looking around thinking, this is stunning, and like you say, the water and the gorgeous nature around, and then these people in the quarry doing yoga, and I just thought, this is fantastic.
It's like a hive of activity, isn't it?
It was just stunning. And that was sort of our first, few days here. And there was all the bunting up and everything in the high street. And I just remember thinking, this is such an English town, as you're having moved back from, abroad. I thought, wow, this is so English. And we had so many visitors in our first year coming to stay. And everybody that came said, I didn't really know anything about Shrewsbury. This is stunning. And as soon as you walk around, they'd get that vibe that you do get, that it's very quaint but lots going on. And I just sort of couldn't believe how nobody had really been here before, and everybody was, we'll come back again, because there was so much to do and so pretty.
I think it's really hard as well to just focus on Shrewsbury, because I feel like Shropshire in its whole is just so beautiful. My wife was like, where can I take my nan? Because her nan's up from Colombia. And her auntie too, and she was like, where can we go? And she was like, Ludlow. I was like, Bridgenorth. I was like, Much Wenlock. I was like, there's like a plethora of these beautiful little towns and hamlets you can go to, like that. I mean, even if it's the Shropshire Hills themselves, there's so much on our doorstep that we just go and enjoy. Like I said, I think we take it for granted, especially when we live in Shrewsbury and you don't look up at the buildings and you don't realise where you are. You could be in, I don't know, with some Coventry, with all brand new buildings and high rises or whatever. This is a great place to live. And it's very creative as well. There's so many creatives here, so many artists and authors, musicians. Like, it's so much on our doorstep.
And Ludlow, I mean, the bands they're getting there. Unbelievable.
Supergrass.
Incredible. Well, last year, I know I was looking, and I thought I must have misread that. The bands, and it wasn't just one. There was so many, one after another each weekend. And I just thought, wow, that's really putting Ludlow on the map. I mean, we went there when we first got here because we'd heard how beautiful it was, and, we went around the town. But to have those kind of bands that are coming into the area, generating the business and, building that community. I'm sure some of the residents aren't always going to be loving that. But I just think that's amazing. And I think it's great that music has that power to bring in artists from all over into a really special venue to run those kind of events. And you're right, when, it's not just in Shrewsbury, when we've been around, and often I get to know places due to my kids' sporting activities. But, it's been amazing.
We can relate.
Yeah. But Bridge North as well, like you say, and Much Wenlock. I've been to both those quite recently, actually, with the kids' sports. And again, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And I really feel, as somebody who has moved, I feel very passionate about sharing how nice an area it is, because we feel really blessed that we've moved here. And like you say, it's very creative, but there's also a lot of outdoors, rural places that people can get to as well.
Well, I was like realizing that, I seem to be drawn to the quarry, but there just seems to be so much like a hub of activity going on there. It's like, I remember I was watching, listening to, this was a while ago, but Katie Melua in the Quarry Park, and I was sat with my little fold-out chair, a little picnic blanket and whatnot, and then listening to her perform, and it was incredible. And
we saw JLS in the summer; it was great.
I loved it. Brilliant, And then there's like, and then the next day you're walking through, and there's people in the bandstand, and they're playing music there, and then there's the park run, and the runners are going round, and then there's people, like you said, either doing yoga, or there's the I Can Dance, and they're all dancing crazy, all dressed up, and you just think, this is amazing, and like you say, as somebody well-travelled, Shrewsbury is fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, really good. But what we need to do, I think, I'm just going to interject this, is we'll come up with a game, haven't we?
We have.
And the game is called, let's see how this goes.
Round the Rican. Round the Rican.
That's so ridiculous.
Round the Rican.
Thank you, Snoop Dogg.
We were all rocking out then, by the way, just because you can't see that.
That's way too long. Do you want to explain the rules of this?
Okay. So basically, just think Room 101. We all loved that show back in the day. 3 things that you kind of either annoyed at or don't like or want to get rid of, or
Are we doing 3? Are we 3 each or just 1 each?
well, we're doing 1, aren't we? But in the future, we're probably going to do 3, aren't we, with our guests? But we're doing 1 each because there is 3 of us here today, and I just think it's really, really fun. So we're going to see what we're going to send around the week.
Well, we're going to do 4, aren't we? Because what we're going to do is we're going to challenge people to send me a voice message every week, week without fail, and I'll choose 1 out of all those. We can create a soundbite as well. So if you have something, and we're going to keep it fun as well. I don't want to be like, I want to get rid of Gregory because he's an idiot, or my ex, or like fun things like paper straws, or I don't know what it is, single tap things that you have to get the temperature right, whatever it is. Send it in, send a voice note. So go to Messenger, hold the microphone, record the voice note, and I will play it on the Shrewsbury Biscuit. And we have a few suggestions today to play. But what we'll do is we'll go around the room, I think, and choose. Should we go with our guest first, or do you want a bit more time to think?
I am now, I'm going to hear what you're saying, and maybe that will...
I'll start off with mine.
Okay.
I decided that those caps we've got on Coke bottles now that are joined to the seal.
Oh yeah.
So when you take a when you take a drink, you end up with like a cap in your nose. Now I understand that there's environmentalists that might see this as a good idea, but I just don't think like the cap and the seal joined together is gonna do anything other than annoy people. I feel like, I don't know what it is. I don't know who decided that this was a great idea, but it's the most annoying thing. Have you ever tried to drink a bottle of Oasis with these things? It's ridiculous because the bottle top of a bottle of Oasis is wide, and this thing makes the cap wider. So you're either going to get it in your cheek or up your nose.
Also, if you do what I did the other day, because my son wanted an Oasis, and he said, "Mum, can you snap the lid off for me?" But the drink was full to the brim, and I was shaking it to try and bend the plastic off, and he had about half a bottle left at the end.
So that's the kind of things we're looking for. We're not looking for anything political or nasty. So that's a nice one. What about you, Vix? Have you got one?
Oh, well, I tell you what, something that really and you'll probably feel this with me. You know, when you come across roadworks and there's all these cones and the traffic lights and you're approaching and they turn to red, if that isn't, you know, that starts you off. But it's actually the fact that there's actually nothing happening. It's like, is somebody having a little bit of play around here? Like, this set up this whole shebang of roadwork, signs, cones, the traffic light system, but there's no work going on. It's like, are they waiting for, like, you know, the little elves at night that come out that help the shoemakers as they're going to start tackling this work, because nothing's actually happening? Or is somebody sat in their bedroom window overlooking, who had some in the garage, you know, some cones in the garage, thinking, and a pair of traffic lights, and thinking, actually, I'm going to have a little play with people here and just like say, no, you can't go yet. No, you got to wait. But there's no work going on. What's going on?
I was one of those elves once. I was drunk in Wrexham, and down Chester Road, me and my friend Alec, we zigzagged the cones down the road. We spent about 4 hours doing it. It was so bad. Like, the thing is, like,
He's going in room 101.
we zigzagged the cones. It was so bad.
It's you. I've got, right, you're
It was
going in.
me, yeah.
Going in.
I'm going in. Oh, that's a good one, though, because it is annoying, especially, like, I know there's lots of changes going on in Shrewsbury. I'm not going to we are going to start talking about debates and stuff on the biscuit, but, like, I think if it's going to improve the town, I'm sure we can.
I don't mind if I can see people, like, they've taken up a tarmac, you know, they're digging up the road. They're like got all pipes out, or there's, like, you know, putting the new, you know.
At least they're doing something.
Yeah, they're putting in some Wi-Fi. I don't know what it, you know, but they're actually doing something. But it's when there's these invisible, no workings going on.
Yeah,
it just seems.
And also, it's when
me.
roadworks sort of contradict each other. So you say, like, you've got like a system of roads, and there's one at one end, and there's one on the diversion, and there's one here. So it like gridlocks traffic all across the whole town. There's like lack of organisation, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of like, well, we didn't know you were going to do that over there, or you know. I feel like there needs to be a bit more organisation, and to be like, we're going to do this over here. And then once that's done, we're going to go over here, because otherwise we're going to cause chaos. So, yeah.
And there's something about traffic that stresses people out. You know, people who I know who are really calm, and then they get in a car and they get stuck in traffic or something, and that is it. Suddenly they turn into someone completely different. You know,
Move over!
Well, we realised I was sat on one side of these traffic lights, and on the other side of the traffic, there was no work going on whatsoever. Nothing started. No people there. No men or women working on anything. But on the other side was another line of traffic, and we were all waiting because both our lights were on red. And none of us had realised that neither traffic lights were working, but we were too polite to sort of just go and just, you know, we thought, no, we're going to wait our turn. And then eventually the guy came towards me and he wound down his window and said, by the way, the lights aren't working. So when it's clear this end, you might as well go. And it's like, oh, okay.
There you go. There you go. Have you thought of one, Sean?
I have. And mine is those taps in bathrooms when you turn them on to wash your hands and they fly the water out. And this is because last week I was at an event and I was in a skirt that basically was, you know, that sort of material that if you got a drop or anything on it, it shows. I mean, it dried obviously, but I went in and I was rushing to get back out and I had to be back on stage. So I was rushing really, really quickly and I turned the tap on just a smidge, but it was one of those taps that you turn it on a smidge and it goes everywhere. And I was like, oh my gosh. So of course I'm stood there, you know, in this dress, which has now got, you know, spots all over it of the water. And I always think, why do they make taps that are that powerful? You know, because it goes everywhere. It goes on the floor then gets wet, you know, people are going to come in and you know, there's this water. And yes, that's happened a few times. But last week, that was fresh in my mind when you mentioned something earlier. And I thought that was one of those annoying moments where I thought, why do they make taps that are that powerful?
And when you try to sort of dry yourself out under the dryer, but your dress or skirt won't reach up to the level of the dryer, and you're like, it's not hitting the dryer, it's hitting your stomach and burning you. And it's like, no.
I was in where was it? Oh my God, it's the new Co-op Arena in Manchester. We went to the Hits Live and it was amazing. But they have these sinks in there that almost have a ramp for the water. they're slanted. So you throw on the tap and it's quite powerful. And then the water comes running towards you. And you get like, if you like angle your hand at the wrong way, I mean, for a guy to get water on his groin area, it's not a good look. It's a massive red flag. People are looking at you like, I'm definitely not going to speak to that guy. Let's just move around. Yeah. So just design your sinks and your taps better. It's a valid
This is what
point.
we need.
So you've got to think of the environment as well, because that's wasting a lot of water, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when half of it goes on the floor.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. We did have a suggestion come through. Now, this is great because our friend Liam Tinsley, who, as favorite top 4 podcasts, I think he used Adolf Hitler and all this sort of stuff. Like, I was like, that's because he's naughty. What he's done is he's sent in his own suggestions. I'll play them. So yeah, Liam, this is your suggestion.
Good morning, Mr. Whiteley. And I don't know if it's playing on the pod, so good morning, Victoria, as well. I have some interesting things to chuck into the Round the Weekend in the style of the Room 101, as you requested. I would put, my number one thing I would put in there is parking charges.
Ooh.
Especially inside a town centre. There is just no point for these. Stop being greedy and stop taking my money. I pay to go to work is ridiculous. My second thing would be Keir Starmer, for obvious reasons. And my third one would be people. Just people in general.
Right, okay. Thank you so much, Liam, for sending that in. Okay, so Keir Starmer, I'm not going to put that in only because it causes arguments. And if I was to throw that on Facebook, it would just cause crazy amounts of just aggravation. Parking charges. We're going to need to decide one of his, I think. So he's got parking charges, Keir Starmer, or people in general.
I love that, people.
Just people.
If we put people in, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this, would we?
I get what you're saying though. I've just had 2 days at home. Like literally, I've got like 12 days off work, or 10 now, and I just spent 2 days at home making content, playing on my PlayStation, doing the housework, doing all these bits, and I loved it, like because there was nobody else around. But that's me recharging my social battery. Now I'm out here and enjoying myself. So I feel like we need people every now and again.
Yeah, I do like cats. I must admit, very much so, and I do have quite a few. But so I can relate.
So just replace people with cats.
Well, yeah, but no, some of them, just some, you know.
See, I feel the opposite. Over COVID, I feel that I realised I like you, I have sometimes when I just want to chill. But I'm the opposite, that over COVID, I realised, some people said, I realised over COVID, I'm not an out there person. I like working at home. And I realised over COVID that I really missed having that interaction. I really missed being with people.
Connections.
Yeah, I did. And it was interesting because a very, very good friend of mine is the complete opposite, and she started working from home, and she still works from home now and loves it. But I said, no, for me, it was very different in Australia anyway, but for me, that was something I realised, actually, I like being with people.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to throw people in or Keir Starmer. I'll put the parking charges. I don't think they need to get rid of them. I think they need to subsidise them and don't, like he said, don't be greedy. So I think we can put that in there because I think maybe it is important because if you don't put parking charges, people just park their car for days, won't they? So you got to be sensible with it. So I think we'll put that in and see what people say. So we've got on the poll, we're going to put this in a poll. We're going to leave it running on Instagram for like a week or something. You vote which one is going to go around the weekend. So we've got caps that are still attached to the seals. We've got roadworks with no work going on. Taps that spray everywhere. Design them better, please. And parking charges from Liam Tinsley. And next week, send in your suggestions for
Round the Weekend.
Brilliant.
I love that. Handing it back to you now, though. Thank you so much for this, by the way. It's been...
Thank you.
How's it felt being on the other side?
How do you think I've been as a guest? Do you think I've been all
I
right?
think you've been awesome. Yeah.
You're my first guest on the Biscuit podcast, so I'm going to say you're my favourite.
The thing is, right, when I go on as a guest, it's easy on a different show or something. I don't know. I don't like narcissistically rambling. And this is the thing, right? When you talk about content creators, those guys that are pouting in front of the cameras to put on Instagram, I do not associate myself with them. In fact, like I struggle with the idea of doing like a Facebook Live whilst I'm walking around and stuff because I don't want people to think I am some narcissist who sociopathically just rambles about himself because I struggle with that. I've got genuine like anxieties about that. So I think I mentioned to you, I had to really compose myself for this. It was really weird.
Well, you've done a brilliant job. And I think people are genuinely really interested about the start of the podcast. You know, maybe they weren't there at the beginning. So I think it's great to hear how it started, why it started, and why it's kept going and is so successful now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. And to offer advice to anybody that wants to start a podcast, there isn't a better time to do it now, because there are ways to get your podcast out there that's free, whether it's YouTube. I think Anchor is still going. I think it's part of Spotify now. I think it's podcasters of Spotify or Spotify creators. There are ways to get your content out there now that's cheap or free. And if you ever want to know about what software to use, I can literally give you a list of free software you can use to edit your podcast and videos and get them out there.
Love that. That is brilliant.
So helpful.
Well. Well,
thank you. What a brilliant, brilliant guest you have been.
Thank you very much. What I'll do though is say, I know you were on the podcast a few weeks ago, but remind people where they can find you, Sian, and keep up with what you're doing.
Yep. So I am on Instagram, LinkedIn, Sian Brennan-Todd. And I, again, like we said, I love connecting with people. And for me, social media, I'm sort of the opposite to you. For me, social media is brilliant because it's a connection that I can have with people who maybe live in Australia or other countries, and it's instant and it's free. So I'm a big advocate of social media because for me, it's been a fantastic way to find people, to connect with people. And, you know, most of my work will come from people seeing things I've done on various different social medias. So, you know, I think that it is such a powerful tool that we can use for good, you know, if we keep it all positive and for good. And it is a lovely way to have that connection, you know, like you were saying about Facebook groups, if you're listening to a podcast. So yeah, reach out, Sian Brennan-Todd. I would love to stay connected with anyone who's listening. And if they've got any tips about Shrewsbury, anywhere that we maybe, or Shropshire that we haven't talked about, let me know.
Yeah, we had this idea of hidden gems, didn't we? I think we want to elaborate sort of like the little nooks and the little cafes that people aren't aware of, or these historical places like, you know, there's the Wakeman trial that you can do. Remember that? There's like the tiles that are everywhere. You can do like the Wakeman trial. There's so much in Shrewsbury and the outskirts as well. We talk about the main town, but like what's outside of the loop?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Outside the
I
loop.
like that.
That's the whole title there.
Yeah, catchy.
Yeah,
Outside the loop.
Yeah. Outside the loop. Thank you so much, guys. This has been really good.
Well done, and thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Me and Vix will do an outro afterwards. But thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yay.
Oh well, I'm glad that's over with.
Oh, how do you feel now?
I feel better actually, because I built these things up in my head. I'm kind of like, oh, nobody's going to want to listen to me narcissistically rambling. Blah, blah, blah. But it's been
fantastic.
it's been a week since we did it though, and I listened back to the audio, and I wasn't as boring as I thought it was going to be. You know?
Oh, come on. Honestly, I've learned so much. I've really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. And there's some really deep and meaningful bits as well.
Yeah, I think Sian's great, and you've done such a good job working together with her.
Thank you.
I've got to ask though, how do you think you're settling in with the biscuit so far? Is it like week 3 or week 4? I mean,
Yes, it's like, yeah, I think that Sian's such a pro at interviewing and things. So I felt a little bit like, but that I feel like I'm learning so much on the job.
I think the thing about podcasts is the difference between that and sort of radio and sort of anything live in front of cameras is that it's so casual. It's just a conversation at the end of the day, isn't it? I think I think you've hit the ground running really, because you are a naturally good conversationalist.
Thank you.
So it's starting to come out. Next week you've got your homework.
I have. Yes, I hope I can get the homework done and on time.
And we'll be back at the Shropshire Business Suite in the podcast room, which we're using an awful lot, because that's because Stuart's a legend.
He is.
We say that because he's just coming in and shut the door so we can podcast in peace. But no, so what's your homework? I mean, what are you bringing to us?
Wow, I've got some really exciting guests. Am I allowed to say who's coming on or not yet?
Yeah, sure.
So we have Sean Owen, who's coming on the show. He's from the 12th Man Retro. And he sells retro football shirts, and I'm just really excited to interview him.
Well, I'm not going to do any research, so Sean, no offense, but I'm going into this blind because I want you to take the reins on that one, okay?
Yeah.
And then the other person.
Then we've got Vince Dovey.
I know Vince very well. In fact, I was with his sister the other day. Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. His sister's kid goes to Timmy's school and in the same class, same year. And so Vince has been on the show before. Great guy, great selection.
And Neville Street as well. He's going to be there, so it's going to be really interesting. All about spike awareness and spiking and using their QR codes.
And I'm not going to be on that episode, so I'm very jealous because they're both dashing men. They're really good. They've been on the podcast before, so tell them I said hi.
I will.
Right then, so thank you so much, guys, for listening to this episode about me rambling on. But I hope you learned something, because that's what this episode was all about, is to share my knowledge with people, because ultimately that's what I want to do. If you've got a podcast locally, or you want to start a podcast locally, don't ever feel threatened by me. I am a friend. I've just been chatting to Jim Hawkins today, actually, because I love what you're doing. If you're creating a podcast, you're making content about this town or whatever it is you do, I'm a friend, and you're welcome to come on the podcast anytime. It's nice.
Yeah, fantastic. I think this is it, get people on the show.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Give us a follow. All those follows really do help. By the way, congratulations to Sarah Dodd, who won the Valentine's meal.
That was an amazing prize, wasn't it?
I know. Alex from Osteria, I can't believe I forgot about that. He gave us tickets for a romantic meal too. He did the like and share content on social media. It worked really well. And it just, I felt awkward because Sarah's a friend, but it wasn't
fixed at all. You randomly picked it, didn't you?
I did the video, didn't I? Where I picked out. So not everybody followed the rules. Some people just like, I'm going to share it, not going to like the page. Some people liked the page and didn't share it. Some people didn't tag. So I was kind of like, everybody's got to follow the rules. So only a handful of people actually followed the rules. So I wrote their numbers down. Mm-hmm. And then put it in a random number generator. That's how we
It's
did
amazing food in there as well. I loved it. I've been there a few times and had them Italian food. Oh, it's just incredible.
It is the best place for pizza in Shrewsbury. Well, hands down. Like, I think the pizza there is phenomenal. I went there once with my wife, and I was like, I want a spicy pizza. Just, I like spicy food. I've done hot wing challenges and won them, America, by the way. And spice is not usually an issue for me, but it blew my face off.
Wow.
It was so good. It was so good.
I can't handle the heat. I can't handle it.
Well, and speaking about the heat, we better get out of here. We've been going on for a while, but thank you so much to Sean and yourself for interviewing me.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for listening, and catch us on the next one. Peace out.
Time I think